Let's try to bring this back up again. Now, just did a story on South Carolina training with South Carolina. Now, that's not Jade Helm. But at the same time, actually preceding that, they're training the sheriff's department. Now they're going after the sheriff's department because we have made a point of backing the sheriffs, if they're constitutional sheriffs, thanks to Sheriff Richard Mack, who fought the Brady Bill, and he started the Constitutional Sheriffs and Police Officers Association, and immediately had a heart attack. Now, I suppose he lived through that, and he's still alive, still working, but they tried to take him out, one of these induced heart attacks. They tried to take me out with an arranged motorcycle accident. They kept me drugged for 3 months for 3 broken ribs, and now Sheriff Max had a heart attack. Organizing the sheriffs and pointing out the sheriffs have the legal authority. Department of Homeland Security doesn't. It just doesn't. That's part of the plan. This is the communist takeover. They had to have an organization. The Mossad demanded a office in Department of Homeland Security. They got the whole shooting match. We've talked about dual citizens being threats. We've talked about lawyers being threats. Working for the British accredited registry, working for a foreign country, working for the Vatican. We got three cities that control you, and will control your family for the foreseeable future if the people don't rise up and stop this. It's, look at it, Brandon Tuberville. It's encouraging to see that people are waking up and giving you the same information now, updated, of course, that I gave you 20 years ago. I told you about the open skies treaty, how they could fly, how Russian planes could overfly America with any form of recording devices. That was cover for the chemtrails. I've told you about this. And it's all happening now. MJTF. I was at a gun show. I was at a gun show in Albuquerque, and I met a captain in the MJTF. Gave him a copy of my magazine. Well, I think you're trying to scare people. I said, I think you're trying to scare people. We want to know. I want to know what this MJTF is, why you're violating Posse Comitatus. Well, they weren't quite. They were using the National Guard, the captain of the National Guard, to work with the Sheriff's Department and the police departments. And they called it the multi-jurisdictional task force, MJTF. I gave him a business card and I gave him a magazine, Free American Magazine. I met him for coffee later at a Denny's. I said, well, what do you think about the magazine? He said, I think the only thing you're doing wrong is that you're not printing 1 million of them. And it's kind of the point that I want to make. He wasn't our enemy. I didn't want any of my militia guys to go out and shoot him. I talked to him. And he started seeing that I was right. That what I was talking about was real. What I was talking about was happening. And, all right, we got Phil, Coca-Cola in there, Dr. D Charge, everybody's in the chat room. Hello, guys. And, if any of you want to talk to me, I'm evidently my guest, Canadian, didn't show up today. He wanted to talk about, he was supposed to talk about self-sufficiency. We're doing the Liberty Village. We're doing what you suggest up here in Canada. But then he didn't come on my show. But hey, we'll try it again. We'll give him another chance. Let's see what we get. Let's see what we get. Barry Prince started his own radio station up there in Canada. And I've actually been on his show, but doesn't appear to be working here. All right. Did I lose this? I guess I did. Hang on, I'll be right back.
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio.
To start your show now, press 1. To hear important instructions, press 2.
Since it appears you're calling back into a live show, we're reconnecting you now.
All right. Just tried to get a hold of my scheduled guest. This is a Canadian. I had asked him when he went in with Rick and Annie to start a new network. I asked about being on this show. They told me I cuss too much. I couldn't be on there. That's all a lie. That's all bullshit. I don't cuss, except for then. And but what we've got here are Canadians pretending to be patriots. They're working for the Queen. They aren't doing anything to, well, they don't have guns. They've already been subjugated. They've already been subjugated. Now, this multi-jurisdictional task force, this was over 20 years ago, 15 at least. And it's what they're doing with Jade Helm. They are working on this. They are putting it all together. And what I talked to you about 15 years ago is happening now. And it's kind of the point, you know, let's talk about that. 40 years ago, 45, I wrote novels, just science fiction novels, about a world in the future. When things were different. When things were different. A Messiah had showed up. Well, some people thought he was the Messiah. Some people thought he was the Antichrist. And they separated. The Christians moved to states that had the same laws they have today. In other words, it was Christianity that gave us this war on drugs, which was nothing more than a war on the American people. Indians been using peyote for years. Hemp's been, even George Washington told you, sow it everywhere. Sow it everywhere. And 40 years ago, 45, I set up to do that. I did the fiction about how this was going to happen. What I wrote 45 years ago is happening now. It's happening in Colorado. It's happening right now. Wasn't science fiction that I wrote. I wrote about the multi-jurisdictional task force. I put it in the Free American. I started the militias. Yes, I did. In the governor's office. And today, that's actually going good. I'll give you some more stories. The point is that I predicted this. I talked about this. I've written about it. Still intend to write about it. Still intend to go ahead with it. I'm going to finish the novels and the short stories that I started over 45 years ago. And then I started 20 years ago, a little more ago, I started the Free American. Because of what I feared and what I was writing about, I saw it before my eyes. Even the books that I wrote, Bloody Alabaster Eye and Deadly Flashes of Silver, were about attacks on our power plants, trying to set up a nuclear blast to take out Miami. One Bloody Alabaster Eye. And I went back after a few years and wrote a future segment. The future segment is happening now. The FEMA camps, everything here. Everything that I talked about. The FEMA, and I talked about FEMA camps in One Bloody Alabaster Eye. You can find that at shop.freeamerican.com. Now, let's see what else we've got here on the current news. Let's see what we've got here. This was cute. I had this marked down. What starts with F and ends with K? A first grade teacher, Ms. Brooks, was having trouble with one of her students. The teacher asked, "Harry, what's your problem?" Harry answered, "I'm too smart for the first grade. My sister's in the third grade and I'm smarter than she is. I think I should be in the third grade too." Miss Brooks had had enough. She took Harry to the principal's office. While Harry waited in the outer office, the teacher explained to the principal what the situation was. The principal told Miss Brooks he would give the boy a test. If he failed to answer any of his questions, He was to go back to the first grade and behave. She agreed. Harry was brought in, and the conditions were explained to him, and he agreed to take the test. Principal, what is 3 times 3? Harry said 9. The principal said, what is 6 times 6? Harry said 36, and so it went with every question. The principal thought a third grader should know. The principal looks at Mrs. Brooks and tells her, I think Harry can go to the third grade. Mrs. Brooks said to the principal, let me ask him some questions. The principal and Harry both agreed. Mrs. Brooks said, what does a cow have 4 of that I only have 2 of? Harry, after a moment, said, legs. Miss Brooks said, what is it in your pants that you have but I do not have? The principal wondered why she would ask such a question. Harry replied, pockets. Well, hello, Barry. I can't get your tongue. Can you speak to me? Can you hear me all right?
Hi.
Hi, Barry.
Hello.
You're,
Who am I talking to?
Huh?
Hi, who am I talking to?
This is Clay Douglas, and you're live talking all over the world on the Free American Hour.
Well, I'm sorry, Clayton Douglas. I didn't realize. You wanted me, I'm sorry, buddy. I was unaware that you wanted me to be on your show today. I didn't know that till 8 o'clock this morning when I looked, or 6 o'clock this morning when I looked at my computer. I'm presently in transit right now between Prince Rupert and Terrace to pick up my son because we're going mushroom picking. If you'd like me to come on the air with you tomorrow morning, Clayton, I'd be willing to do that, but I was unaware that you wanted me right now, and I'm talking to you on a cell phone driving down the highway right now.
Well, I can hear you. You want to talk a little bit about what we had talked about you doing, about your apartment there?
Okay. Yeah, I'll run it by your viewers quickly. What we're doing, and we're not going to be starting it this year because the property that we're doing this on, Clayton, the gentleman that's backing me up and is involved in this project with me, owns a piece of property in Terrace, British Columbia, that currently has a couple buildings on it. They are leased until September. In September, the buildings are going to be torn down when the lease expires. Next year, we're going to be building a fourplex on that property, completely solar powered. I'm going to be putting up a website on this project here in the next 2 or 3 weeks, Clayton, and people can have a look at what we're doing next year, but we'll be breaking ground in March of next year to build the project. We have to change the zoning on the property because it's currently commercial, but we've already gone to the city and seen the property is bordering a residential area. We will have no problem rezoning it to residential. It's kind of a groundbreaking project for the north here, where I just show the north exactly what can be done with solar power and how efficient it's becoming and the cost factor involved. Unfortunately, because of prices in North America, all our product for these projects is being purchased out of China. As for the price in China compared to the North American market right now for solar panels, about a third of the price. So that's what's in the works with me right now, and we will be doing this next year, and I will be putting up a website very, very shortly on what we're doing. Are you
getting any resistance to this? Down here in America, anytime somebody has tried to get off the grid, unplug and be self-sufficient, they come down and condemn the property. They harass them. They don't want you to be self-sufficient here. What kind of resistance are you getting to this?
We're actually getting a lot of support in the community on this. A lot of open minds right now are looking at. The gentleman that's involved with me in this, Clayton, is very, very well known in the community. He sat back and really had a good look at exactly what's being done in Germany right now with their solar programs, the advancements in solar in the last 2 years alone, where it's become something that wasn't really efficient cost-wise, to now it's become something that is cost-wise. We're actually getting a lot of support now. We haven't had any pushback as far as city council goes. Right now, we're in the process, like I said, of getting the property rezoned, but there shouldn't be a problem with that at all. And I don't think we're as far as you are, guys, down there in the States. I know anything to do with self-sufficiency is being condemned by the government. The States, of course, they want to control everything and anything. But what we're seeing with solar, even in my town right now and other towns up in the north here, we're seeing solar panels going up on roofs because people are looking at it and they're going at the cost factor of actually now, believe it or not, Clayton, we've done our research into this, and you can actually set up a complete system in your house now for in around the $20,000 range that will produce 5 kilowatts of electricity consistently, 24/7, 365 days a year. They're actually getting to a point now where you're going to have excess power that you can actually sell back, and BC Hydro will buy excess power generated at the same price that they pay, or they charge us for their kilowatt hour, which is 7 cents a kilowatt hour. They will pay us exactly that price for any excess power we generate and return to the grid. So we're seeing quite a bit of actually support on this. People are actually really starting to look at this. Now you're making the public aware of it, and they're going, wow, you know, this looks pretty efficient to me. And if you really think about it, if you're building a $350,000 brand new house, and you said to yourself, well, you factor in that cost in the beginning, say $20,000, and you set up your system, you're looking at self-sufficiency in power, and the government isn't putting a stop to that up here yet. That might come, but it hasn't happened yet, Clayton.
I had a guy that came on. I even gave him the cover of my magazine, the Free American magazine, and he wanted to do exactly that, self-sufficiency. Put a cistern in the basement, collect all the rainwater off of the roof, put solar on the roof, put a garden on the roof, a greenhouse garden on the roof. And I talked with him about that and tried to advertise it. And he called me up and said, I can't do this. I can't do this. You're too well known. They've already come after me, and I took him off of the entire relationship. He didn't. I took him off. It was a good idea. Again, it was a good idea, but the forces that be out here, the power companies don't want you generating your own power. And the other thing is, I've told people, if you put a garden in your backyard and grow food, not grass, and put solar on your roof or a wind generator, and there's some really well-designed wind mills that work pretty well. Also, there's the magnetic motors. I mean, you see a lot of it on the internet. They want to sell you the plans for $49, but nobody's built one yet. But they did in Australia. They built these magnetic generators. They were stackable, and they would power your whole house without any fuel. Have you looked into that?
Well, free energy exists. It just has to be exposed to the world. Like, you know that, and I know that. There's so much going on right now in the world of free energy. I mean, heck, you can stick earth batteries in your ground outside and pull a configuration of 10 earth batteries in a row. You can pull 40 amps out of your ground. Am I still there? Did I lose you?
Yeah, Tesla Auto Company, Tesla Motors is working there. They're doing a wall, what they call a wall, and what they've done is improve on the battery design, and they're trying to build a mega factory down here in Arizona, or New Mexico, or Texas.
Right. If I'm breaking up a little bit, because it is I'm on a cell and I am driving down the road, I'm actually going to find a spot here where I can stop and I get a good reception.
Yeah, you're still coming in good on this end, Barry.
Oh, okay, fine. It's just breaking up a little bit here. Yeah, no, I'm in contact with people like Larry Woods and Shazuz and all these free energy guys all the time, Clayton. And, you know, if anybody doesn't believe that free energy doesn't exist in this world, then they really got their head in the sand, because it does exist. It's just it's going to be held back from us so hard by the powers to be, because you know they don't want us to know about something that's good for the planet. That's for sure. But yeah, getting back to solar, it's actually pretty exciting, Clayton, and there isn't going to be anything that's going to stop us in this community from building it, as far as we can see. And I've got a very, very solid financial backer behind this. He sees it. He knows that it is the wave of the future. And the most important thing I think right now for society, Clayton, is just knowledge. People becoming aware that this is available and that it is being held back from the government, of course. And when people become knowledgeable about it, we're going to demand it. I don't think they can ever stop the flow of energy coming now on free energy. It's how it's going to be controlled and how it's going to be manipulated by the government.
You know, Barry, we've had this technology for 100 years. I mean,
I know.
We had it before the Federal Reserve took over America, before they killed the Tsar and subjugated Russia and China. We've had the technology for 100 years. They just don't let us have it. They don't, you know, I had had some interesting father-in-laws, and one of them built a Pogue carburetor, and was getting 50 miles a gallon on his truck, on his pickup. And two guys in black suits showed up. Hi, Mr. Babcock. Listen, we need to get you to take that carburetor off of your truck and destroy that one you're building for your neighbor, Mr. Colonel Conrad. Yeah, what happens if I don't? We'll kill you. And he said, I believed him. I believed him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, there's been lots and lots of instances like that happened in the last 100 years. But Clayton, we know that, and most people know that. Anything that comes along that's efficient or bucks the status quo or threatens the oil industry, they're going to kill to protect. I mean, you look at the power behind the oil industry, the power behind the big farming, same thing. They will spend billions of dollars to protect the money they're making. It's just a charade, of course. But yeah, we are pretty excited about this, just to bring this information to the public, and the more people that become aware of it, now we're getting quite a buzz on our Facebook pages up here about it. People are starting to look at the information, they're going, wow. You know, like I said, if you look at the cost of building a new house in Canada, you're looking at about, to put up the house alone, probably $250,000 plus the lot. You factor another $20,000 in that over the bank robbing of mortgage to the banks, and it really factors into nothing compared to what your power costs are going to be. And then you think about the efficiency of being able to put a greenhouse out in your backyard and have all the power you want, all the other things you can do when you're generating your own power. They haven't put a stop to that. I think as more and more people become aware of it, they're going to have a hard time stopping it in Canada. I say to the Americans, then, as far as this issue goes, the most important thing you have in your pocket is that little book called the Constitution, because everything they're doing is direct violation. The more Americans that become aware of this, it's your right to have this, and maybe we can stop it. But I don't know. I see incredible things going on inside the U.S. government right now. Very disturbing.
Well, I think you're right, and of course that's why I do the Free American and why I've done it for the last 20 years, because the mainstream media is simply not going to give you that. So I started the Free American magazine, and I started the Free American radio show, and I look back at what I talked about 20 years ago. I was just talking to a captain in the multi-jurisdictional task force, which is really started at 20 years ago to try to control the sheriff department and police from town to town.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing that they're doing now with Jade Helm. Jade Helm in the Southwest, where I have always been centered, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California. That's where I operated. This is where I did the Free American, and this is where I started the militias around the country. And of course, they came down on it. They came down on it and tried to kill me over that. You know, we're not exaggerating here, and we're certainly not being paranoid. This is real. This is happening, and they've killed friends of mine, other radio talk show hosts like Bill Cooper. I mean, Bill Cooper and I were planning on putting our magazine together. He had Veritas, I had the Free American. And 2 weeks after we talked about it on the phone, they tried to kill him. They did kill him, rather. So we're really, and I've had one guy on my show, and that has built a coil that is more powerful than anything we got today. And he said it could be used to make these magnetic generators. When can I get it? When can I get it? You can't. I can't build it here. If I try to build this coil here and these generators here, they will kill me. So I'm doing it in Indonesia.
Yeah, I know the gentleman you're talking about. Yeah, I know. That's a shame in our society. I've actually pulled over here on the side of the road, and I'm looking at the Skeena River right now, and I'm looking at an old settlement that was made in 1840. But Clayton, just so your viewers knew that right now I'm looking at one of the most beautiful scenes in British Columbia. And yeah, Jay Helm, Clayton, getting off, didn't mean to get off subject there. I just wanted to share that with you for a sec. But yeah, getting back to Jay Helm, I've got a pretty big knot in my stomach about that whole operation. It's just not Jay Helm, Clayton. It's everything else that's going on at the same time that seems to tie perfectly into the time frame that Jane had. And those are some of those issues are what's really disturbing me. I'm sure you're aware of everything I'm talking about, as you're on top of this more than I am.
I am.
What is your real gut feeling about this? And I'll share mine with you for a few minutes.
Well, it is exactly what they tell us. So they and they're always good about telling us in advance. I mean, they all of your movie theaters and all of your cartoon, even your cartoons, our cartoons down here, predicted 9/11. It predicted 9/11, and it's they're telling you the truth. It's an exercise. It's an exercise, but it is an exercise designed to take out people like me. They know about me. I mean, they certainly know. They know about Alex Jones. Alex Jones is a little safer than I am because he don't talk about the Jews. I do. And this ain't anti-Semitism. Here is an elite group that works for, you know, the Romans, or works for the Catholics, or works for the Zionists. They've always had this. It's just getting a little tougher now. The internet has made the average person aware that this is a form of slavery. Our whole system, monetary system, is a form of slavery. And that's why there's a 2,000% markup on your Xanax or your Viagra or whatever. They make billions of dollars, trillions of dollars off of your pain, off of your misery, off of your energy. Put that gas in the car and go to work.
Mm-hmm.
We could be running, and Tesla has really shown this. You know, not only are they building a mega factory down in Texas or New Mexico or Arizona, they're building a mega factory to make batteries. We could run our cars off electricity, and the tires or the wheels could be charging. They're charging batteries while it's running. All they got to do is put a little alternator in there.
There is a company doing that next year, Clayton. I'm sure you're aware of it. A company in Germany is going to release a prototype where you drive the vehicle down the road, got magnets in the hub of the wheel, has an iron core, and as the wheels turn, it generates electricity. It has capacitors and a storage system in it. And this company is called, I haven't got the link in front of me, but I read it, Enviro Corporation, I believe it's called. You can Google it on the internet, and apparently at the end of the day, there's so much power built up from you driving the vehicle around town in your normal chores, that you can plug your house into the car and still have power at the end of the day to run appliances in your house. You think about that, man. What a revolution, instant revolution in the world. Well, you know, that technology's just got to be exposed to the public. I mean, folks, what we're talking about here is a reality. It's not a lie. That free energy through the power of magnets. And then the gentleman that Clayton's talking about right now, I have conversations with that gentleman every couple of days. And what Clayton was telling me, he's in terror of his life right now, because what they're talking about is a simple generator that everybody can have in their house that will run till the batteries or till the magnets run out, which is about, he says, approximately 300 years, which will generate on a small scale. A small one will generate 5 kilowatts of electricity. That's your normal consumption in any house. When you think about that, what would that do to the power corporations and the powers to be? They would knock them out on their butts. And of course, Clayton, they're going to kill to protect it. So I think we can overcome that by sharing as much knowledge as we can in the time we have left here, because I believe what you believe, they're going to put stops to this very quickly. That, you know, people can actually look at these prototypes and go, wow, you know, it's a simple design. It's not hard to build them, and you can have your own power, guys. Like I was talking a few minutes ago about earth batteries. There is a site on the internet, Clayton. You can go and research earth batteries. There's a gentleman down in the States now that's put 10 of them in a row in a configuration, running wires from each battery to each battery, just poles going into the ground, pulling power out of the earth. He's got 40 amps of power going, or 40 watts, and I forget what the amperage is, going to his house constantly, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, just out of the ground. Well, you look at the solar windows they're bringing onto the market now. You can put windows in your house that'll power everything in that room. Well, for God's sakes, if you had solar windows all through your house, there's your power problems right there. So there's so much coming out, people just have to become aware of it.
Yeah, and are you aware? Are you aware of graphene too? Graphene. They got a Nobel Prize for inventing that. And it's stronger than steel and lighter than aluminum. My God.
And we can look at the reports that just come out on the superconductivity factors or properties of the inside fiber of the hemp plant. Clayton, I don't know if you read about that.
What's that? Repeat that. Repeat that.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, repeat that. What was that last?
Okay, well, we're finding that the inside fiber of the hemp plant is a fabulous superconductor. And there's a scientist in Germany that are working on that right now. You can just Google hemp fiber as a superconductor on the internet, and you'll see the reports that I've read. You know, we don't want to get off subject on the hemp plant too much, but it's just an example of how more research being put into this plant, more and more we're finding out about the incredible properties. We don't want to get off subject, but we got to talk about Jade Helm for a few minutes. I can only stay here for a few minutes and talk with you. I have to get going here. But yeah, my gut feeling about it, Clayton, is there is a lot of events that are coinciding with Jade Helm around the world. We have Operation Maple Ridge now going on in Canada. There's other operations going on around the world at the same time. Factor in the UN Small Arms Agreement and how that's going to be tried to be ratified through the U.S. Congress on apparently July 27th with the date I read. You know, that coincides exactly when this operation is going on. A couple other things that really bother me is that we know that the government has built miles and miles of underground cities, and who's to know what meets there and what's waiting, if anything, for the American public should this thing go hot. A lot of things bother me about this whole operation, so I'm listening to what the American people are saying about this too, Clayton, and they're, you know, to say they're scared poopless right now, a lot of them are really starting to become aware and awake. I see a mass awakening happening right now in the United States of America. They're really starting to recognize what's going on around them. I feel this time, this is one of the most important times in history that Americans have to stand up and really look themselves in the mirror and go, hey, we better take a real close look at this, because it could be something more than what they're saying. And my gut feeling is, Clayton, that it is. So those are my thoughts on it, buddy.
Well, I am right here in Big Spring, Texas, who invited Jade Helm here. The city council don't know what the hell they're doing, but they invited Jade Helm here. And also, here at Big Springs is the Veterans Hospital, and I think the veterans are our best hope down here. And I've told people anytime a communist regime takes over a country, they go after three classes of people in order. They go after the farmers first because they don't want you feeding yourself. They go after the intelligentsia of the next. That's any of us that are smart enough or educated enough to know what they're doing. And third, they go after the veterans and the police officers that are loyal to the old regime. This is what Jade Helm is about. It was also when they passed the, I think it was Senate Bill 1959, they created the fusion centers, and they put the feds in charge of the police departments, and they started sending the police chiefs to Israel for training on how to handle the Palestinians. We, the American people and Canadians, are the new Palestinians. And they intend to do to us. That's why they've created these camps. This is why they created FEMA. In case of a single outbreak of smallpox in a major metropolitan area, we'll need 400,000 well-armed, well-trained, organized, disciplined troops to control the American people, because some of them just won't follow orders. In other words, some of us won't line up on the Walmart parking lot to get a vaccination for a disease that's been eradicated in this country for 100 years. And that vaccination will give you the smallpox, it will give you the Ebola, it will give you whatever they've got up their sleeves. So some of us won't do that. Some of us won't line up, and that's kind of what's happening now. People are starting to wake up. They're trying to make it mandatory to give your child a vaccination. Huh?
It's insane right now. It's absolutely insane right now what's going on in the United States of America. I've never seen an acceleration of attacks on freedoms, attacks on liberties. What's going on right there right now is going to affect me and the rest of the world in ways that we can't even begin to imagine. What I'm seeing right now, Clayton, is that it's so in your face that anybody that isn't seeing what's going on around us right now is really got their head in the sand, or they just don't care. And I say to people, you better care, because things could really change quickly. I'm agreeing with everything you're saying, Clayton. I didn't want to go down the rabbit hole too deep, but this is something that Americans really have to speak up against right now.
Well, when I spoke up against this, when I spoke up about this after Waco over 20 years ago, you know, they of course tried to paint me as a conspiracy theorist, but everything I talked about, Barry, is happening right now, right in your face, and now it's in the mainstream news. And by the way, somebody said on my chat room here, they talking about Jade Helm. It says that Colorado backed out because if those agencies were not involved. They're talking about NORAD and let's see what it says. Colorado backed out of Jade Helm because both Northcom and NORAD were not allowed to be involved, which indicates that Jade Helm was clandestine, because any real military drill the size of Jade Helm should include Northcom and NORAD. So,
right. And then you had the report out yesterday on C-SPAN about the training facility, and I don't know if you saw that report, Clayton, or not.
I don't watch CNN. Go ahead. What?
Well, I'm just looking at the video, and the video is legit. And all they did was take a picture inside the training facility that the American troops are training in right now, and it sure don't look like an overseas country. It looks like an American city to the core. And this is what they're training in, so just another thought to ponder. I don't watch C-SPAN either, but I picked this video up from about 4 different links yesterday. Actually, Roger Landry was the one that investigated it first and looked at it and said it's legit. It's legit. It's on the website. It's on the government's website. You can look at it. Where they have the general blah, 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 putting out the complete pile of BS about the whole operation. And you can actually see the training facility that they're using to train American troops in. And all I'm saying, Clayton, is it doesn't look like no overseas country. It looks like an American city to me.
You know, they bought cities. 15 years ago, I put in a bid, and I was raising money to buy a town in southern Arizona, or southern New Mexico, rather. Plias, New Mexico. I was going to buy that town. Had a bowling alley, a great swimming pool, about 10 miles from the border. And they came after me. They stopped me. They went to the town and told people, well, that militia guy from Albuquerque, he wants to buy the town and sit up there on the mountain and shoot illegals. I documented it, I recorded it, I had it on the cover of the Free American, and they put it down and turned it into a FEMA training camp to train troops how to take over an American city. Now, everything I talked about 15 years ago is happening again right now. I mean, in big time, in big scale.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, it is a very, very concerning issue for sure. And listen, Clayton, I'm going to have to leave you now. But if you, and I'll just share a couple thoughts with you before I go. I am actually heading out in the bush here in a couple of days to go pick more mushrooms in the fires that burned last year in British Columbia. So I'm kind of going to be in and out of touch for a couple of weeks. But if you wanted me to join you tomorrow morning for half an hour for a chat, I'd be willing to do that. My last thoughts on Jade Helm is that it's leaving a knot in my stomach. It's leaving a knot in a lot of people's stomach right now. And it's something that we really, really should pay close attention to. That people should investigate what's going on behind the scenes. All the other things that seem to coincide with Jade Helm, like I said earlier, Clayton, are the things that really disturb me, especially the ratification of the UN Small Arms Treaty. If they put something like this off, and if they say to the American people that you have to turn your guns in 30 days, then we know the proof is going to hit the fan. And my feelings are, Clayton, is they're pushing the American people for a revolution. They want an armed resistance. They want to be able to implicate martial law, and then the hammer will come down. And as much as they're pushing us in that direction, I hope we don't have to go that direction. That I hope that we can do this by rising our voice as one and stopping this in the courts or legally before it gets out of hand. Because if we go to a military operation in America, I don't see it ending up good for the people, Clayton. I don't. I know there's going to be millions of Americans that are going to stand against it. I know millions will. I know I will. I know you will. But, you know, the government's got little toys and things that they have hidden in their arsenals. I mean, and when I thought, you know, their technology is miles ahead of ours, Clayton. They haven't unveiled to the public what they have in toys and arsenals and weapons and things that can unleash on the American people should this thing go hot. Lots of things about this concern me deeply.
Barry, I'd love to have you back on tomorrow. I'll just move it up. I'll put it up on my thing, and I appreciate your work and appreciate what you're doing, and thanks for calling in today. We'll do it again tomorrow for a short time.
Cool.
All right, thank you.
I look forward to it, Clayton. Like I said, I'm leaving Thursday morning for the fires, and the reports I got is there's millions and millions of morels growing. My buddy went in and did this last year, Clayton. You want to hear about something that'll still allow you to be a free man on the land. My bud went in last year. I was working full-time job supporting the government. I've had a change in lifestyle this year. I have committed myself to stop supporting the government in any way, shape, or form that I can. So this year I'm going to pursue the mushrooms in the bush. I'm still young enough to do it. My buddy made $36,000 in cash money last year in 5 weeks of harvesting morels. The burn I'm going to, Clayton, is 30 miles wide, 60 miles long. It is spruce that the fire was put out by snow last year, which if you go on the internet, and you guys can look this up, if you Google morel mushrooms, it'll show you what the mushrooms are. The world market for is expanding. They're an incredibly edible mushroom, and they do have medical values. So the market is expanding, and I'm going to go in the bush here for 3 or 4 weeks and harvest them. So I will be incognito, but I will join you tomorrow morning for an hour or so, and we can have a chat.
All right. I'd also like to talk about one thing Canada has done that we should do down here, and that's legalize hemp.
I agree. We can talk about that in depth because you know that's one of my favorite subjects.
All right, Barry. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Brother, I'm gonna sign off, brother, and thanks for having me on, and all of you guys, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow, Clayton.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
All right. I got my guest. That's great. That's a great. All right, how are we doing in the studio? Okay, talking about Ferguson, Missouri. Baltimore riots were part of Jade Helm. That's right. Ferguson, Missouri was part of it. And even, let me see what else I got to say here. There's, if the Jade Helm practice should be implemented upon one real city, then the rest of the U.S. will become activated in order to resist the struggle for personal freedom, possibly. They want you to be afraid. They want you to be afraid. And frankly, I don't believe that the troops that are training here, they're not your fault. I volunteered for Vietnam. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought it was a good thing I was doing, going to fight communism. And it wasn't until I got out in 1964 that I realized every plank on the Communist Manifesto was intact in America today. And, all right, let's see what we got. I know what we got. I got to go get a cup of coffee. But, let's do this.
Hello, friends. This is RJ, the Mighty Phoenix. Friends, if you're a business owner and need capital to sustain or accentuate your business, and if you've been in business for 2 years or more, and your credit scores are low as 500, I can help you. Credit scores don't pay back with money that you borrow. Credit scores are only weapons being used against you in the war on small business. You pay back money that you borrow with business monies earned. So if you have 6 recent bank statements and your business is active, and as I said, you've been in business for over 2 years, I can get you money within 8 business days. Contact me at R as in Russell, J as in James, P as in Peter, P as in Peter again, A as in Arthur, P as in Peter again, A as in Arthur, at yahoo.com. That's RJPPAPA at yahoo.com. And if you're not in business and you need to earn extra cash and you don't want to go out and work for someone who's going to take advantage of you, or you don't want to spend the money to gas and get paid minimum wage, you can work with me, not for me, and earn big commissions. And all you need to do is place ads on the computer, on the internet, on Craigslist, on Backpage, on other sites, in the financial section. Only 15 minutes a day. Again, contact me at rjpPAPA@yahoo.com. Leave your cell phone number. I'll get back to you within 24 hours. And we'll discuss the issue. I can help you. Again, rjpPAPA@yahoo.com. Have a great day, folks.
All right. Let me see here. All right. We're still recording. And I want you to see something here. I've tried to explain to you I did the right thing. I did what we could do when I started the militias with Governor Gary Johnson in New Mexico. I did the right thing. 10 years later, that was in 1994 when I started this radio show and this magazine. 10 years later, I saw a false flag happening, and I tried to do something about it. Free American, March 2004. World Trade Center building number 7. Why did it fall? I said we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it, and they, the New York Fire Department, made that decision to pull, and we watched the building collapse. That was Larry Silverstein's quote, September 2001. Now the question is, did they decide to pull the towers also? Well, yes, they did. This was my March 2004 issue of the Free American. And I was doing pretty well. I had this magazine in Barnes & Noble and Books A Million, and before the whole 9/11 thing, or 2004, so before it really got rolling, I told you what was happening here. And had my films advertised, The True Face of FEMA, and America, Dream or Nightmare, all done there. My sons were part of their magazine. We did that. And I said then in March 2004, my column this month is intended to keep you apprised of the changes that are taking place in our lives and our business. I've always tried to be open and honest with my readers and listeners. This is a policy I will not vary from. Janet and I have moved to Phoenix in order to launch a new magazine called Arizona Thunder Riders. As most of you know, I'm a lifelong motorcycle enthusiast and published a biker magazine prior to starting the Free American. The first issue of Thunder Riders hit the streets all across Arizona on January 1st, along with a 2-hour show, Thunder Road on KFNX 1100 AM about motorcyclists and motorcyclists. Thunder Riders was an immediate hit. The full color content, photos, the stories already have a larger audience than the Free American. While I avoid any political content in that magazine, we do advertise our health products in the Free American magazine and radio show, and this gives us access to a growing segment of the population, motorcyclists, who are fairly affluent and adamant about their freedom and liberty. The response to our American heritage and health was disappointing, so we decided to roll that back into the Free American. If you subscribe to it and you're a subscriber to the Free American, we'll extend your Free American subscription appropriately. If you were not a Free American subscriber, well, you are now. Although the new Thunder Riders is distributed at better bike shops and bars in Arizona, it is available by subscription at the same cost as the Free American. At the end of this column, I will provide our new office information and contact numbers for our office in Scottsdale. The office in New Mexico is still fully functional, and Rebecca and Vincent are there to take and process your orders. We're looking for a caretaker or renter for our house in Bingham, New Mexico. If you're retired and interested in quiet living far from the maddening crowd like dogs and cats, so please give us a call here in Arizona. Now back to the Free American. In this issue, you will find absolute proof that at least one of the World Trade Center buildings was taken down purposely by its owners in the New York Fire Department. That leads us to ask, where were the other towers pre-wired for demolition? A photographer assigned to photograph the World Trade Center way back in 1988, while building number 7 was going up, was drawn into a secret meeting of a team whose job it was to study supposed defects in the towers. He was able to glean from the members of this commission, before they discovered he was not a part of the team, that the towers were unstable and they would not last long enough for the investors to recoup their investment. As you know from mainstream reports, Larry Silverstein leased these defective buildings and possibly could make a tidy profit from their destruction, although the numerous insurance policies he had taken out only months before Although a recent ruling cut his payout from $7 billion to a little less than $4 billion. In the first issue of the Free American hit the streets after 9/11, I asked the question, could this be an exaggerated case of Jewish lightning? Now it seems I was not too far off from the mark. This is not a case of anti-Semitism, slander. This is not a case of anti-Semitic slander, but merely an observation of facts. This is not to say that Larry Silverstein is the sole culprit here. He did not force the Air Force and NORAD to stand down while the hijacked planes made their way to Washington. He did not recruit or train the pilots who hijacked the aircraft. He did not force the federal government to come in and remove the evidence of explosives that had brought the buildings down. He did not fire the 50 top executives whose offices were in the Twin Towers to a secure base in Nebraska, where, along with Warren Buffett, they watched the planes fly into their offices at an hour. Few of them were ever awake before that day. A few hours later, President Bush joined them as he flew in from meeting his wife with the school children in Louisiana. More than likely, Larry Silverstein was approached by either or both of the two governments who had a plan for world domination in place. Project for the New American Century and the Patriot Act. These neocons were just waiting for the right catastrophe to force them to own the people of the world. The conversation may have gone something like this. We know these buildings have to be demolished sooner or later. Buy them now, insure them heavily, and let us rig them with explosives. At the proper time, we'll pull them, and you will get your money. And the next page. In a stunning and belated, this is again 2004. And what you need to understand, this was such a powerful issue, and it went all over the world. Went into Barnes & Noble, went into Books A Million, went into Hastings. April 2004, George Bush, the story of George Bush allowing the NSA to tap everybody's phones, hit the New York Times. In May of 2004, I called home and asked my son, where do you need me to go next, son? Where are you, Dad? North side of Phoenix, Sacred Skin Tattoo Parlor. Oh, go down 24th Street to McDowell, turn left, go to the wheel shop, it's right there. I did that 2 blocks before I got to McDowell. I was hit. I was T-boned by a woman with no driver's license, no insurance, in a borrowed car. She had drug charges pending, and my sons never found her. Later I learned that NSA didn't tap anybody's phones. That task was farmed out to two companies called Amdocs and Converse. And they tapped my phone. They tapped my phone. Knew where I was going to be and had somebody waiting for me when that failed to kill me. They hit me, the woman hit me hard enough to roll a Road King over me 3 times. Hit my head against the curb. I don't wear helmets. Still don't. But well, they were all upset about that. They were all upset about that because it didn't kill me. So they rushed me to a hospital and told my family I had a severe brain injury and kept me drugged for 3 months. 3 months. When I woke up, 2 guys in blue pinstripe suits were there. Hi, Clay. How you doing? You been hallucinating, Clay? You been hallucinating? Well, you can thank us for that. Yeah. Who are you? We're CIA. Yeah. What are you doing in this country? What are you doing fucking with me? Well, we don't like you publishing that motorcycle magazine. The motorcycle magazine was debuted 3 months earlier than the Free American and went all over Arizona. The trick was the motorcycle magazine was reaching people, and my sons kept that alive. While I was drugged into oblivion, into unconsciousness, my sons kept it alive. So I still had a source of income. Now, everything, here we had an ad for Truth Radio. Here we had a thing for the Health and Freedom Rally with Hutton Gibson and Joe Bannister. The downing of the Twin Towers and other buildings in the complex was done by planned implosions. Robert L. Parrish Sr. said I was working at Kirkwood Commuter in Cleveland, Ohio from 1974 to September 30th, 1998. We had an industrial refill department that large commuters from 1 foot to in diameter, 20 foot in diameter were made. A commuter is the circular switching device on an armature shaft, switches the electrical current that flows into the windings of the armature coils to an electric motor. It is the thing that the brushes ride on, so the current flows into an electric motor that energizes the field coils and causes the motor to rotate. The commuter switches the current from coil winding to coil winding that causes the motor to rotate. I was the metrologist, a gauge technician, who sat and calibrated all the measuring devices in that plant for over 18 years. We had a team of consultants hired by Otis Elevator to supervise and inspect all aspects of these commuters that we produced for these motors. They were being made for the largest ever twin towers going up in Asia. Otis Elevator and had the elevator contract. for providing the elevators. The lead consultant engineer would always come into my gauge calibration lab to watch and inspect my settings and the calibration of gauges for measuring the components that we're producing for the assembly of these motors. Most people who worked in that tool room, screw machines, and industrial refill departments knew, because they were making the parts, that we were manufacturing 4 or more very large commuters, but they did not know who the customer was. Nor did they know what application they would be used in. Most of the other people in the plant had no knowledge whatever of what was being made. All they did was make the part for something they had prints and shop orders for. One day the lead consultant engineer was in my lab talking just about stuff. I asked him, somewhere in the future, in 50 years or so, how are these twin towers going to be taken down as tall as they were going to be, and as tight as land is in a crowded city, without causing vast destruction to the other buildings? He was standing upright. He outstretched his right arm with the palm down, and he said, "Bam, bam, 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 bam," as he lowered his hand from one imaginary floor at a time, all the way down to the floor. I knew that we had to certify these commuters to be able to operate continuously for 50 years without service or repair as our part of the contract. He explained that as the buildings were being built, explosive charges are being incorporated into the structure at key floor joint locations, so that when the first charges were set off at the top floors, they will take that floor down to the next, and the charges at that floor will be taken will take it down to the next floor. This will continue all the way down. The twin towers will come straight down like a stack of pancakes. When the buildings get old and no longer useful or profitable to have and maintain, all it takes is a phone call to take them down. This is 2004, March 2004, folks. The jet. So, you see, no one had to sneak into the buildings of the World Trade Center in New York and plant charges during a terror drill or practice fire drill. They were already there, built into the building when they were constructed, just waiting for the call to detonate, waiting for the day when the buildings were no longer profitable to keep and maintain for whatever economic reasons of their owners and controllers. The jet airliners crashed into each one of the twin towers, and 30 minutes later the phone call was made, and the first tower was taken down, then the second tower was taken down. And by the way, the other buildings in the complex were going to be a liability and no longer of use. So a phone call was made, and they went down as well. The controllers of the building complex of the twin towers made $500 million profit. They did not lose any money. They do not care about people. They only care about their profit margin and the bottom line being as far in the black as they can get. This is what happened to the true story. You're right about building number 7, but you should not forget the above in regards to all of the buildings in the Twin Tower complex. Again, it is my contention and stipulation that these buildings were constructed. When these buildings were being constructed, shape charges were set in the joints of the key places, waiting for the day when the buildings were to be declared obsolete and to be demolished by the powers that be. This way they could be taken down one floor down to the next, all the way to the ground. This was also the plan for the highest twin towers in the world that were standing in Asia. What needs to be done is someone to get the real full constructions, blueprints, building plans for these buildings in question. It may show in detail what I've said. Robert L. Parrish. In a stunning and belated development concerning the attacks of 9/11, Larry Silverstein, the controller of the destroyed World Trade Center complex, stated plainly in a PBS documentary that he and the New York Fire Department decided jointly to demolish the Solomon Brothers building or World Trade Center 7 late in the afternoons of Tuesday, September 11, 2001. The omission appeared in a PBS documentary originally aired in September of 2002 entitled America Rebuilds. Mr. Silverstein's comments came after FEMA and the Society of Civil Engineers conducted an extensive and costly investigation into the curious collapse of World Trade Center 7. The study specifically concluded that the building had collapsed as a result of the inferno within, sparked apparently by the debris falling from the crumbling North Tower. Mr. Silverstein's comments stated in direct contradiction to the findings of the extensive FEMA report. They even negate Kevin Spacey's narrative in the very documentary in which they appear. World Trade Center fell after burning for 7 hours. If it had been generally known that the building was pulled, wouldn't Mr. Spacey have phrased it that way? In the same program, a cleanup worker referred to the demolition of World Trade Center 6. We're getting ready to pull the building 6. There can be little doubt as to how the word pull is being used in that context. The shocking contradiction is yet another curious twist in a disturbing series of events surrounding the collapse of World Trade 7 and the World Trade Center complex in general. Among these is the fact that in all the history of high-rise fires, not one has ever resulted in a collapse. On 9/11, 3 such anomalies were alleged to have occurred. Those who argue that the towers were vulnerable in their top heaviness and verticality cannot be explained when the collapse due to the fire of World Trade Center 7, a broad-based 47-story steel-framed building. There's also the fact that most of the structures destroyed by falling debris were directly under the Twin Towers, and none of them caught fire. World Trade Center 7 was not only a full city block away from Tower 1, but World Trade Center 6 stood directly between the two buildings and certainly absorbed most of the damage. In addition, World Trade Center 7 suffered a strangely thorough and complete collapse, leaving only a level lot where it once stood. Although it was a much smaller structure, World Trade Center 6's 8-story carcass stood for months afterwards after being gutted by Tower 1. There was also a disturbing correlation between the collapse of World Trade Number 7 and the bombing of the Murrah building in Oklahoma City. Now, that whole bombing of the Murrah building was done because of me starting the militias there. 1 year later, from the deaths of the 17 little children in Waco, they killed 21 children in the Murrah building. Now, folks, the point behind this is that I have been absolutely accurate. I've been publishing this magazine for 20 years. I've never been sued for libel and slander, but they have tried to stop me. They've tried to break me. They've destroyed my family. They destroyed businesses. I had that Arizona Thunder Rider magazine sold for $1 million, $500,000, and I still retain 50% of it. We signed the papers on Thursday. They put a press release out on Friday, publicly traded company. Monday, I walked in. The CEO is white and shaking. I can't go through with it, Clay. They're threatening to impeach me. My stock's dropping like a rock. I can't go through with it. What this means is that I am probably the most dangerous person out there. They are, and now, maybe it's coincidence. I doubt it. I don't believe in coincidence. Maybe it's a coincidence that I moved to Big Spring. Now, the lady that's been helping me, working with me, I came here to Big Spring to be with her. She was threatened too. She was approached. Why, do you know Clay Douglas? Just like I told you. And what else they've done? What else? She's had all kinds of problems, health-wise and financially. She's had problems since she's come here. Okay. And then they send people like this. Let me bring up Scumley. Hello, Scumley. How are you?
Yeah, I just wondered what kind of BS you're going to give us today. I mean, what are you? You're not a Paul believer. You're a Christian one day. You're a Christian the next day. You're a Christian identist the next day. The next day you got Gordon Duff on, who shot himself on the behind in Vietnam. And you got Nugent on the next day, who got porked up the rear end by his father, who claims to be a pro-white guy. What kind of show do you have here, man?
Obviously one that trolls like you want to say. What do you do? Who are you? What do you do? What do you do besides calling here and try to put down all of my guests to try to put me down? What do you do? What's your claim to fame?
BS, pal. I don't like BS, pal. And when I hear people bullshitting my friends over the air, I feel the need to do something, unlike your complacent listeners out there.
All right.
You know, like,
by the way, Shumley, hey, Shumley,
Phoenix,
Scumley,
Italian, huh?
kiss my ass. Goodbye. Okay, I don't need to hear that. That's what they do, folks. Now, when I came out with Mystery Babylon, the New World Order Unveiled, got the whole story about 9/11, about this so-called accident that they arranged. They, as soon as they did that, they started, well, Clay's selling that book. That Clay's selling that book to raise money for a snitch named Waivers. Just like Scumley. I mean, they tried to put me down. They tried to get me kicked out of bars. They got me kicked out of some events and some runs. And all based on lies. Everything this foul-mouthed Scumley says, and by the way, his phone number is 321-987-2251. You can pass that around. I suppose this guy's a Jew because he accused everybody else of being a Jew. But he just comes on occasionally to try to put down any of my things. Again, all lies, all lies. This is the way they do it. I brought him up just to show you. This is how they do, to try to put me down, to try to keep you from supporting me. And as I've just showed you, this is no scam. I'm not. I've told you the truth here. This magazine was distributed nationally. I'm not any kind of player, and I've been broadcasting and publishing for 40 years, and I've never been sued for libel or slander. So, you just knock yourself out, talk to Scumley there. My book, Mystery Babylon, has my whole life history, and now after 50 years, I've got my VA ID card. What a great, what a great time. What a great time. It's, there's more in here. There's more in here, and it's been 10 years now that I've been trying to get the magazine back up. And got a Bush and Nazi link. And 10 years ago, FBI urges police to watch for people carrying almanacs. FBI has warned the police to be alert for people carrying almanacs, cautioning that the popular reference book cover everything from abbreviations to weather trends could be used for terrorist planning. That's by William Rivers Pitt. Federal hiring spree funded by deficit spending. They could fill all the seats in Invesco Field at Mile High with a few thousand extras left waiting outside. The crowd is 79,464 strong, representing all the new civilian workers the federal government has added nationally since the end of 2000. Colorado has shared in the 3-year boon in the federal workforce, adding 1,180 federal workers, mostly on President Bush's watch. This includes new federal security to states' airports, plus hundreds of new Colorado workers and departments of agriculture, interior, and veterans affairs. Critics see it as a sign that the country has entered a new era of big government, only partly explained by Homeland Security measures taken in the wake of terrorist attacks September 11, 2001. Now, some Colorado lawmakers, both Republicans and Democrats, are expressing growing concerns when it comes amid a projected $500 billion federal budget deficit this year. I think it's very difficult for Republicans to maintain the mantle or be able to claim the mantle of fiscal conservatism, says U.S. Representative Tom Tancredo, a Republican from Littleton. Some say it's more because of the war that we have to spend more. I say it's because of the war that we have to look at all the other things we do and cut back. This was 10 years ago. And again, page 20, Perpetual debt. From the British Empire to the American hegemon, Bush officials have suggested that their war on terror will last many decades. Less than a month after 9/11, Defense Secretary Rumsfeld compared it to the 50 years plus or minus of Cold War with the Soviet Union. Another false flag. Thus, if the ruling elite has its way, and it shall, as the American people have no opinion on the matter or can even be bothered to think about it, we're faced with at least half a century of intermittent war and a further argumentation of the national security state that's been draining our wealth like a voracious vampire since 1950. There is no secret as to how they will finance it by borrowing and inflating. If the Democrats are the party of tax and spend, The Republicans are the party of borrow and spend. Since Prime Minister Sir Robert Walpole's introduction of the funding system in England during the 1720s, the secret was out that government debt never need be repaid. Just create a regular and dependable source of revenue and use it to pay the annual interest and the principal of maturing bonds. And then for every retired bond, sell a new one. In this way, a national debt could be made perpetual. Walpole's system proved its worth in financing British overseas expansion and imperial wars in the 18th and 19th centuries. The government could now maintain a huge peacetime navy and military establishment, readily fund new wars, and need not retrench afterward. The British Empire was built on more than the blood of its soldiers and sailors. It was built on debt. The ever-growing debt had the ancillary benefit of attaching interest of wealthy creditors to the government. This example was not lost on some leaders of the infant American Republic, Alexander Hamilton for one. The triumph of the funding system and its corollary of perpetual debt is undeniable. It rules the world. While there is some expressed concern about the size of the Bush deficits, almost no member of either the intelligentsia or the ruling elite has suggested or even considered paying the debt down. Just consider the likelihood of congressmen agreeing to set aside $400 billion a year in a sinking fund instead of spending it on programs, projects, and overseas adventures designed to get him or her reelected. The possibility of it happening is as remote as that of an American mountaineer summiting the highest peak on Mars. From 1800 to 1860, the glorious Jeffersonian epoch of American history, this country's political elite viewed government debt as a temporary expedient to be contracted only for pressing national purposes and then discharged within the lifetime of the generation who contracted it. Amassing a debt to fund grandiose and national projects and then funding it to perpetuity was regarded as monarchical, English, and corrupting. In the 1790s, Hamilton, Morris, and other arch-federalists sought to graft this statist model upon the infant republic, but they were overthrown by the Jeffersonian Republicans as the Revolution of 1800. Hamilton's rationale for perpetual public debt included his belief that it would help keep up taxes and preserve the collection or apparatus. He believed Americans inclined towards laziness and needed to be taxed to prod them to work harder. There is no surprise why voters opted for Jefferson and liberty. In the 1789 letter to his friend James Madison, Thomas Jefferson raised the philosophical and moral question of whether one government of men has a right to bind another. He believed the answer was no, that the earth belongs to the living. He believed it a principle of the very extensive application and consequence in every country. Applying it to government borrowing, he argued that it was unjust and unrepublican for one generation of a nation to encumber the next with the obligation to discharge the debts of the first. After all, the following generation cannot have given their consent to decisions made by their fathers, nor will have they necessarily benefited from the deficit expenditures. For Jefferson, every generation has the same right to enjoy the bounty of nature and the fruits of their labor as the preceding ones, without being bound or encumbered by the ambition of those who went before. No generation can contract debts greater than may be paid during the course of its own existence. And if they do so, the following generation is under no obligation to pay it. They and their soil are by nature clear of the debts of their predecessors. Again, folks, 2004, 10 years ago, I told you this. And it even goes on to talk about the war between the states caused an explosion of debt that would have startled Jefferson when it rose from 75 million in March 1861 to 28,000 million, 2.7 billion in August of 1865. The debt was now $75 per person. It had been $2 per capita in 1860. Such was one of the costs, and by no means the dearest, of coercing the southern states into a consolidated and centralized union, which was formerly a confederation, now a unitary republic. However, the libertarians and constitutionalist traditions proved too strong to continue to be suppressed by the reigning Republicans. In 1869, Salmon Chase, who had been Lincoln's Treasury Secretary, was now the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, wrote the majority opinion ruling that the Legal Tenders Acts of 1862 and 1863 had been unconstitutional. In 1872, the income tax expired and was not renewed, and in 1895, the Supreme Court ruled it had been unconstitutional. In 1877, the federal government ended military rule of the last two occupied southern states, Louisiana and South Carolina, and the tyranny of the radical Reconstruction was at last over. The gold standard was restored in 1879, with all the national banknotes being redeemed in gold on demand. Lastly, the national debt came down a little each year. By 1880, it stood at 2.1 billion. By 1890, 1.1 billion. By 1900, 1.2 billion. Once again, war would negate the fruit of years of patient but modest debt reduction at President Wilson's urging. Congress declared war on Germany in April 1917. In just 2 years, the debt skyrocketed from 3 billion to 26 billion. Fiscally conservative Republican presidents Harding, Coolidge, and Hoover brought the debt down to 16 billion by mid-1930 before the Depression began ratcheting up again. In 10 years, Roosevelt and his New Deal managed to more than triple the national debt from 22 billion to 72 billion, which was by any measure the largest peacetime increase in American history. The 1941-45 war against Germany and Japan caused the debt to reach the Olympian heights of 260 billion by the end. Peace would inaugurate a new era in American history. After a brief demobilization, the country would return to a permanent war footing and forge the Cold War state. It would also discard the venerable traditions of post-war debt reduction. The new tradition was relentlessly upward ratcheting, apart from a very slight declines in 1947, 1948, and 1956 to 57. The last year there was any reduction at all was 1960. The debt began an upward trajectory into the infinite reaches of outer space. By 1970, the national debt had reached 390 billion. In 1980, it was a modest 930 billion. Next was the deluge under Reagan and his Republican Senate. The debt rose to $2.7 trillion. Under Clinton and the Republican White House, it reached $5.7 trillion. Under Bush and the Republican Congress, it has risen to $6.9 trillion as of January 1st, 2004. Assuming Bush's re-election and the continuation of the illimitable war on terror and another recession, the national debt could reach the $10 trillion mark by 1980. That's from historian Stephen Trask, an adjunct scholar of the Mises Institute. And folks, this information was in this magazine 10 years ago. This is where my decline started. This is where I have tried to educate you. I've tried to bring this back many times. And every time something has been happening. Now, I'm asking you for a donation. Go to freeamerican.com. You can still read the magazines. You can still buy the books. You can get the films that I made before I put this out and they tried to kill me. God bless you all. I really appreciate your support. I appreciate your donations. I want to, again, thank you for all this. We're out of time. freeamerican.com. shop.freeamerican.com. We'll get you some of the books and some of the other things. God bless you all. Have a great day. We'll have more from my guest, Barry Prince from Canada, about self-sufficiency, free energy. Join me tomorrow and make a donation. Let me know you're listening. God bless you. Bandit, come here.